Thank you so much for coming. I'm really honored to be here and to be able to have a chance to speak to all of you. When people say, at least in America, "How are you?" the answer is typically what? Good? Oh, great. So cross-cultural. So if I were to say, "How are you?" you're going to say fine, good, okay. That's not an answer. So instead, what we've developed is this simple graph. If you remember your mathematics when you were in school, there's the x-axis, which is this one, and that represents how much energy you have right now. And it goes from very low, 0, to very high, 10. So if you have very low energy, you're probably more like, you're sort of almost half, actually with all the jet lag, I feel, so this would be close to 0. And I shouldn't have done this because it would be really hard to get up. All right. And then 10, 10 over here, you're really full of energy. The y-axis is your feeling, pleasantness. Are you very unpleasant or really pleasant? So think of how you feel right now in this moment using these two numbers. How much energy do you have and how pleasant you are from 0 to 10. Let's see by a show of hands. Is there anybody with very low energy and who's also unpleasant down here? You're laughing. Now, if you are, what's that called? Introvert? No. Unhappy. Sadness. All right. Does anyone have a lot of energy and is really unpleasant? Hey, I'm talking to you. How many times do I have to ask, is anybody here? Come on, raise your damn hand. You are and you are? And that emotion is angry. Are you really angry? No? Okay. I'll come and give you a hug if you need it. What about low energy, but you're pleasant? So I'm kind of low energy, but I'm in a really kind of pleasant mood. Anybody in this green area? Yeah, contentment. Terrific. And what about energetic and full of energy? Anybody in that yellow? Okay. Yeah, happy. Happiness, joy. Sure. Did anyone not raise their hand? I know who you are. All right, look, that's the fundamental basis of emotional intelligence. It's asking the real question of how are you? There's 4 questions. What's the second one? The second one is, does it matter? Does it matter how you feel? No, it doesn't. You're all professionals. You all have a job. You get paid to do a job. It doesn't matter how you feel. Right? If you were me, if you were talking today, where would you want the audience to be? Yellow? Who says yellow? All right. Does anyone say green? Okay. Anyone say blue? All right. And I know there's a couple of wise guys out there. Anyone say red? Now, I want you to feel pleasant. The more pleasant you are, the more open-minded you will be. Now, you're sitting in chairs, so if your energy is a little bit lower, that's fine. Question 1, how are you? Question 2, it matters how you feel. And with emotional intelligence, it's not always about being happy. It may not be possible to be happy. And we say it's also not smart. It's not helpful. Any engineers in the group? Couple, 1 or 2? Anybody in finance? Okay. So look, if you're an engineer or a chemist or an accountant. It's okay to make mistakes, right? Be a little creative in your planning. You know, if you're a mechanical engineer, you want to compute the stress of a beam. Hey, so you're a little off. Who cares? Right? No, it matters a lot. If you have a budget spreadsheet you're working on, it's okay if the numbers don't balance, right? So you're off a couple of million rupees. So, yeah, we're friends. Well, it does matter. And in fact, there's some great data, great research that shows if you're just a little sad, not depressed, a little sad, you're more likely to find errors in a document. Before you press the send button on those specifications or on the financial spreadsheet, and you're really excited because finally this project is over, I would say bring down your mood, regulate your emotions, and try to figure out, are there any errors? Because I was so happy I was cutting and pasting in my spreadsheet, cut, paste, cut, paste. I had my earbuds in, I'm listening to music, cut, paste, cut, paste. You cut, you forgot to paste. That's kind of a problem. Now we also talk, did anyone here go to university? Any college graduates? There are, okay. Now, I think India is kind of a laid-back society. You don't have exams or anything, right? You just... Oh, no, oh, you do have exams. Oh, okay, well, so maybe this applies to India. So look, a little bit of anxiety before the exam. You study hard. You work hard. Anxiety is smart. Anger can be smart. Social change, social justice rises from a sense of anger. This is not correct. I will do what it takes to change. Anger is a motivating force. So we believe that all emotions are smart. Question 1, how are you? Question 2, does it matter? The answer is yes. Here's question 3. Why do you feel this way? Moods change from moment to moment. So maybe, why do you feel this way? Is it just a mood? Maybe I've been in Mumbai, today's Wednesday, for 2 days, and driving from here and there, and I've discovered that you have a lot of traffic in this city. So maybe you can be in a bad mood because of the traffic. Maybe you didn't get enough sleep last night. So you want to know, why do you feel this way? Where do these emotions come from? Oh, I'm looking at you, sorry. I said I wouldn't look. That's the third question. Here's the fourth question. How do you manage your emotions? I want you to stay engaged. So we're going to be here for this evening for 4 hours in this lecture. Okay, so you are listening. That's great. So we'll be here for an amount of time. Look, you have a lot going on in your lives. You all lead really complicated and busy lives. But for the time that you're here, use emotion management strategies to stay focused and engaged. So you might want to think about these principles. How can you apply them to your life? As a professional, as a friend, as a parent, as a human being. What will you do? So the success of this talk is a function. Success equals function, open parenthesis, my talk plus your ability to stay engaged, close parenthesis. That's the formula. So, how are you? Does it matter? Why do you feel this way? And probably the most important question, what will you do to stay focused and engaged? Try to apply this information to your life. Is that a deal? Great. Thank you. Okay. And by the way, that's emotional intelligence. It started, a lot of people don't know this, in 1990. Peter Salovey was a young graduate student. Jack Mayer was a little bit older. And Peter Salovey and Jack Mayer are two of my best friends. In graduate school, I studied intelligence theory. And together, we've worked for a number of years, actually since 1997, although I've known them for more than 30 years. We've been friends and colleagues for 3 decades. Well, a lot of people don't know, that was when Peter was named president, that's us on campus. A lot of people don't know that these guys came up with the idea. Our focus is very, very specific. It's on emotions as something that can be adaptive and can help you think. And it consists of these 4 abilities. I asked you, how are you? Can you read people? Can you read their emotions? Second ability, emotions can help you think. I want you to stay engaged. The theory goes further. What was the cause of your emotion? Were you anxious last night because you had too much masala chai? Why do you feel that way? And then how do you manage your emotions? That's their theory. And let's go here. Now, a lot of people, we have engineers and finance people and chemists. You are data-driven. That's great. You are data-driven people, and you should be data-driven. But emotions are a form of data. Emotions have information contained in them. You had a question, Diane. You had a question? You raised your hand. What's your question? Oh, sure, you raised your... Could you come up here again, please? What? No, if you have a question, don't be shy. Why don't you please stand up here?
I have a question.
But you raised your hand.
A ball came at me.
A ball came at you. This is what happened. As I was talking, I gently threw this ball toward Diana. And she had a reaction. She had an emotion. And it looked like this. Diana, what did it... Let's do that in slow motion. It looked like... What did it look like?
That's not what it looked like.
Yes, it did. Look, I'm the expert. Diana, what did it look like again? Let's see it again. This is harder work than I thought. Oh, the coat's coming off here. Okay, so you had an emotional reaction as the ball came toward you, and it looked like, great. All right, let's come out where everybody can see this. And again, it looked like what? Okay, freeze. 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 One more time. Freeze. Open mouth, wide open, eyes wide open. Okay, now, freeze, freeze, freeze. Leave that, leave that. What emotion is this called? Surprise. Stay right there. What are the 3 key What are the 3 key features of surprise? What's the first one? Eyes are wide open. Why is this intelligent? What is this doing for her?
I don't know.
Right. More data, more information. What's going on here? This guy, is throwing a ball. Now, the second feature of surprise is what? Open mouth. And come on, this is serious. Come on, this is science. Why is this adaptive? More oxygen getting ready to... And actually, listen to what actually happened in slow motion. You can hear the breath. So the ball came, you can hear her... She's also getting ready to do what, maybe? Shout, to warn all of you because of her love and concern for her fellow humans. There's a third feature of surprise. What is it? Why is this adaptive? Right, because what she did is very deftly, she deflected the ball and went like this. Now, that's because she has emotions. And, oh yeah, now you do it. I think we've created a monster here. Now you want to do a song?
No.
Okay. What's the option?
Of what?
Of not having emotions. Let's instead have you be the stereotypical CEO. What does the stereotypical CEO do? Well, first of all, you want to get your consultants to come on in. And you want to compute a model. Does anyone remember from mathematics the formula to compute the trajectory of an object? Yeah? Here it is. So what you do is you'd hire your team of consultants, and they get out their scientific calculators, and they compute, all right, the angle at which the ball came out of my hand, the velocity, the distance from me to you, and you run your models and you get back to me. Maybe in 2 months, and you send me your bill. That's what we would do. How long would that take? Take a long time. Instead, oh, nice catch. Instead, you have an emotion. Emotions are smart. Emotions are adaptive. And what this guy, Antonio Damasio, said is, without emotions, you can't make good decisions. Emotions help you make really good decisions. Not being emotional. You take your logical data from your engineering work, your finance work, and how does it feel? Emotions serve an organizing principle. Emotional intelligence is not one thing or the other. It's not this, which you did so well. It's that combination. And that's what you do every day. You use your emotions, and you use your natural, incredible level of IQ. Because of all the people here, you are brilliant. You are emotionally intelligent. You agree with this, yes? Right, right. You are also a good sport. And to thank you for what you did for me, now Daniel Goleman sold millions of copies of his book. We've sold, if I include this one, which I buy on Amazon, we've sold dozens of our book. But Diana, thank you so much for helping. Come here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're definitely in the 2 digits with our book now. So, 4 things: emotional intelligence. Emotions are a form of data. It's a form of information, not the only source of data, but it's an absolutely critical source. Antonio Damasio is a brilliant neuroscientist, has written some wonderful books. The Feeling of What Happens, Descartes' Error. These are beautifully written books. And he says, in the absence of emotion, you're going to make lousy decisions. You think about your own decisions. Anyone here ever does anyone here have a friend who's made a bad decision? If you had considered all the logical data, as well as that bad feeling that your friend had about the decision, your friend would have made a much better decision. Damasio's work shows this with his neuroscience, and it's brilliant. I highly recommend his work as well. So, how do you know if you're emotionally intelligent? So this is a joke, and if you want to laugh, it's perfectly fine. Okay, or not. With intelligence, it's easy to know how smart you are because you take competitive examinations, you go to university, you get grades. So overall, you know how good am I at chemistry, mechanical engineering, and mathematics, history. But with emotions, it's harder to know because you don't get feedback. Because you might think you're sending a message. So if I think I'm a good read of people, and I go to someone, and I'm saying, hey, how you doing, huh? Hey, it was really good to meet you. I really, I just got to say, you have been such a good buddy to me, and I just, yeah, man, woo, yeah, you're like my little brother, you know? Now, at the end of that, Parmesh says, hey, I said, he's a great guy. He really loved me. And meanwhile, the message that you're sending is go away. Go far away. Go back to Connecticut. And I'm going to call the embassy and make sure that you never get a visa allowing you to come back to India, let alone Mumbai. But if I lack emotional intelligence, I'm not going to see all the signals about, just how much this guy, he just loves me. I mean, it's obvious to me. That's the problem with emotional intelligence. If you don't get a feedback loop. You don't get. All right, I am not going to ask for any other volunteers. I am not going to go pick anyone up. Actually, maybe I will. As a way to keep you focused and engaged, realize this. Oh, I never got my ball. Did I get the ball back? Can I get that ball? Let's see what kind of arm you got, because you had a great... Whoa! You are good. Wow, that's a great arm. So look, so a lot of people don't know how good they are. We have a test called the Mayer-Salovey-Caruso Emotional Intelligence Test. In the United States, one of the cultural differences is the author, or the name of the authors, the last person is the most important. Maybe that's another cultural difference. That's not true. And so we can measure it. And how do we do it? Well, we don't ask you how emotionally intelligent you are. We show you a picture, how much emotion is present in the picture, and so forth. And then here's what we find. Let's go ahead. I do want to mention this. The single best predictor of success at work is intelligence and technical skill. It is. Absolutely. If instead of recruiting, instead of entrance examinations, everything was random. If everything was random, this is the best predictor. You know what basketball is? Does it matter how tall you are in terms of your performance at basketball? Really? Who says yes? Does height predict performance in basketball? Professional basketball? The answer is it does not. It doesn't matter how tall you are in professional basketball. It does not predict your performance. Why? Because everybody's tall. Everyone in this room is smart. So IQ is now limited. It's restriction of range. In the National Basketball Association, everyone is tall. Otherwise, I could play professional basketball. Oh, now you're laughing at me. Okay. Same thing here. Why do I tell you this? Because you worked really hard to be here. You studied. You have technical skill. And you need your intelligence. And you need your technical skills. Don't ever forget that. But now you're in a room where everyone else is really smart. And now, especially if you're leading and managing people, you need other skills. And emotional intelligence is one of those skills. And if you're higher on emotional intelligence, what does it predict? More pro-social behavior. You have better quality relationships, long-term relationships. You create more positive work environments. Some other studies, very quickly. You're better able to handle stress. Anyone here work in a stressful environment, or is life pretty easy? So a few of you work in a stressful environment. So this is why emotional intelligence becomes important. It's also not just being a nice guy. Emotional intelligence predicts what you achieve, but also how you do it. You can still achieve results, but you can also be a decent person. It's a great message. It's not one or the other, it's both. So that's what emotional intelligence is, that's what it predicts, and you can also get better at it. So, if you don't have these skills, I'm going to show you a neutral face. She's going to have an expression that lasts a microsecond, and then another expression. So tell me how she feels. What emotion was that? Happiness. Let's try another one. Neutral. This is his neutral expression. Excellent, surprise. So we teach people to look, to be the extroverted engineer, look for cues, know what you're looking for, but that doesn't always work. So we also ask, we teach this in our training. We'll say, what's one thing you disagreed with? On a scale of 0 to 10, how much did you enjoy that? On a scale of 0 to 10, how are you feeling? So for each one of our 4 skills, we teach these strategies, and they work really, really well. We teach people to match their mood to the task. If you're a team leader, you have a project team meeting, you bring them together. We call it our mood meter. How is everybody feeling? Well, it's Monday, they're a little stressed out, feeling a little sad, but the purpose of this meeting is to brainstorm creative ideas. You should read the emotion of the team, and then you, as the leader, you own the mood of the group. That's your responsibility, and you need to change it to engage in more creative brainstorming and planning. So we just teach people this. It's very simple. You just learned this. You can now do it, and you can be better at what you do. We teach people to understand the causes of emotion, to have empathy. What makes you happy may not make you happy. That's the source of empathy. Has anyone ever gotten the birthday present they didn't like? I have given many presents that people have not liked. A lot of times we give the present we want to receive. If you have great emotion understanding for the people that you love in your life or your employees, you should be able to answer each one of these questions. And if you can't answer this about your boss, you should. You should learn, how does my boss want me to work with him or her? As a boss, as a leader, you should know how to reward people. You should know what frustrates them and what brings you pride. Why do you show up to work? Yes, it's to earn a paycheck. But for most everyone, what is the meaning that you get from the work and the life that you lead? And the answers are going to be unique to you. My answers are not your answers. Years ago, is anyone married? Years ago, my wife had a birthday. So men in the room, I want to teach you a priceless lesson. If you're married, remember your wife has a birthday every single year. But get this is weird. She also would expect a present every single year, not like every 4th year or 5th year. So these are things that one learns over time and with a lot of yelling. The yelling helps to learn these things. So you really need, that's also a joke, and you need to figure out what brings a smile to that other person's face. That's part of emotional intelligence. Now, a lot of you make decisions. The more you know about emotions, the better decisions you will make. I won't go over this study, but if you're interested in the details, email me and be happy to communicate this to you. But the underlying message here is that if you are good at understanding emotions, the quality of your decisions will be greatly enhanced. You're also taught as leaders, oftentimes, that emotions have no place at work, and that if you're a manager or a leader, you should also hide your emotions. And that makes a lot of sense, because sometimes, hey boss, I hear there's going to be some changes around the company. Should I be worried? Well, it's confidential. You can't tell me. But no matter what you think, we say emotions leak. You can have a great poker face, or emotions will leak. The more you suppress, the less resources you have to process the information, because you're blurring your mind. I'm conditioning my mind. I'm focusing on my facial muscles. I'm thinking about something else. So if you think that being a great leader means never showing your emotions, I would say you're wrong. And for those of you who I was looking at, who had a little bit of a smile going, like your face was twitching a little bit, you are sending a signal. And the signal is, yeah, you should be worried, but I can't tell you. What does that do to the trust in that relationship? Goes down, it destroys it. Because what you're saying is, I can't trust you. We cannot have an honest conversation. That's really powerful. I learned this lesson first when my children are all adults. When my youngest son was 8 years old. Worst week of my life. I waited at the school bus for him. He comes off the bus. He looks at me, Daddy, Daddy, how was your day? Now the answer was, his name is Ethan. Ethan, Daddy's day was the worst in the entire world. Everything is horrible. It's awful. I'm depressed. I haven't slept for 3 nights. The world is falling apart. That's what I was thinking. What did I tell him? Fine. How was your day? An 8-year-old, he looked at me with that look that only an 8-year-old can give you, and he turned around in disgust and we went into the house. Employees, children, friends, Romans, countrymen. Great, you're warming up, finally. Okay, this is all right, you're finally warming up. So the idea here is that if you're good, if you have a great poker face, it's a nice skill to have. It shouldn't be your only skill. There's a cost to it. So if you can't do that, we teach people all of these other strategies. There's a lot better strategies out there. And again, very quickly, preventing unwanted emotions, responsive strategies, self-talk. Okay, it's okay, they're looking, nobody's really left. No, they haven't really laughed at my jokes, but I don't know, maybe, I think I'm a funny guy, but if they're not laughing, maybe it's okay. That's called self-talk. Now, the key to self-talk is what? Being aware of your thoughts and not saying it out loud. Unless you're on a crowded subway and you want a whole seat to yourself. So you do this all the time. You walk around and you talk to yourself. Calming, soothing thoughts. You can change the situation. You can stand up. You can breathe. You can exercise. So we teach people, if a poker face doesn't work, there are lots of other strategies. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So that's a very brief overview of emotions and emotional intelligence. Jack Mayer, Peter Salovey, two of my dearest friends, wrote an article in 1990 before many of you were born. This is true. Their paper languished, no one read it. A brilliant journalist wrote a book, and he brought this concept to the world. In our work, we focused on those 4 abilities. We focused on measuring it. and its importance, and also how to teach these skills. Some of you are naturally gifted in emotional intelligence. You're brilliant. Some of us are less so, and we learn lessons, as I learned with my young son. And if you're not brilliant at it, you can work at it just a little and get just a little bit better to help you in your individual work, your work as a manager, as a leader, as a wife, as a husband, as a father, as a boyfriend, girlfriend, as a human being, as you interact with everyone else that you come into contact with. Because one of the great outcomes of emotional intelligence are long-term quality relationships. So on that note, I want to thank you again and thank Cultural Lab and Godrej. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for coming. It's really such an honor to be here tonight.
Hi, our education system typically focuses on IQ. So what is your policy recommendation or your recommendation for inculcating EQ in the education system?
So our work began with businesses, but the principles actually now extend from preschool, age 3, all the way up through university. Now, we don't do the same kinds of training, but we start with teachers. And also we bring in parents to do parenting workshops. So because parents don't have the language or the vocabulary, it's extremely effective. And you should see some of the work that schools use. They use our mood meter, so they don't use numbers, but they use colors. So a child will say, I'm in the red this morning, and the teacher will then have strategies to comfort and provide support for that child. It's really great work. It's also a little frightening and scary because it can be misused. So I worry about that a little bit as well. But thank you for that question.
So in the quadrants which you showed, there were two axes. One was of energy and one was of feelings. So is there any exact method by which we can exactly quantify the energy and feelings?
Are you an engineer? That's a really great question. In 45-minute, an hour talk, we don't. But when we train teachers especially, we talk about that a lot. Because how do you calibrate it? Your 5 is my 8. You know what I mean? So we spend a lot of time with examples, and we try to calibrate each of those measures. But we don't have a precise way to do it. But we do want to talk about a little more precision so that the number system that you use is a number system that I use, is a number system that someone else uses. And so we give very specific examples. Some people never get to a 10-10. So yeah, great question. It takes about a week or so of that kind of calibration training.
I have 2 questions. The first question is academic intelligence related to EI?
What intelligence?
Academic.
Oh, is academic intelligence related to EI? Absolutely, yes. Correlation is about 0.4. So we're very serious that this is not something totally different. Very smart people can also be emotionally intelligent. You know, smart in the traditional sense. Some people think they're opposites. Not at all. The correlation is moderate and positive.
My other question is, sometimes we come across people who say what they don't mean, and what they mean, they don't say. So how do you put them in emotional intelligence? How do you solve it?
One of our abilities is empathy. And it's my hope, we have just a little bit of data, that if you're emotionally intelligent, you have all of these abilities, including empathy. That means you care and you are an authentic person. However, emotion management also means that when someone asks you a question, you are able to perceive, do they actually want a real answer? An example would be, hey, well, Parmesh, so yesterday when you toured me around, you said, would I like to see the shoe store that you get your shoes made? And I said, sure, because I knew it was important to him. So what's the question? And so in other words, you want to know what the real motivation is. And I think sometimes emotional intelligence does mean, well, I'm really bored with shoes, I don't really care. That's the real answer, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings. Although I guess I now have done that.
I'm counting times today.
So,
oh no.
Yeah, maybe I'll just take my shoes off. And yeah, so I think you have to know what the real question is and have empathy and know that, that the answer depends on what the underlying question is, which is about emotional empathy. Great question.
So I have a question here. So when you said emotions help you make decisions, what's the difference between emotions and instinct in that sense?
The emotions and instinct. I don't know. I think emotions are the physical sensations and feelings that you might have, which sometimes people say is a gut feel. Here's the really important point. You have to figure out the source of that feel. In other words, I have a bad feeling about this decision. Is that because I had too much chai? No, is that the source of the anxiety? Or when I was reviewing that project plan, I realized we were a little bit aggressive on the schedule. And I didn't think about it consciously during that team meeting. But you know, now that I think about it, there's no way we're going to meet that deadline. So instinct or gut feeling is either really stupid or really smart. But you have to figure out where that comes from. You have to understand the underlying source of your feeling. So I hope that answered that question. It's a really good one.
Yeah. I was wondering how EQ can be used, to help children trust their own feelings. So although you speak about it in the ruler approach, I was not sure how early can one start with it, because a lot of adults also can't trust their own feelings, so one can begin it really early.
Yeah, so as I said, this work is now in hundreds and hundreds of schools in the United States, also a little bit in Italy, Australia, and Spain. The work starts by teaching teachers. Because we as adults, how many of you took a course on expressing your emotions? Yeah. You're a psychologist. Right. But most of us don't. And so we don't have the language. So before you work with children, we need, it's weeks and months of training to give teachers the skills and the confidence and the vocabulary. Without that, I think you can actually do some harm if you bring this into the classroom. It's an ethical dilemma. So they need weeks and months of training, and they also get coaching. They get videotaped. The videos are reviewed by coaches back at Yale, and then they get feedback on that. And not everyone can do it.
In the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that decision-making, which has emotions involved in it, typically results in a good decision. Now, the question here and the confusion that I have in my mind is, wouldn't there be a judgment bias because your emotions kind of block your decision-making process? They take, supersede it.
Remember, there are 4 abilities, and the 4th one is emotion management. So, and the first one is perceiving emotions or reading emotions. It starts out with how am I feeling? How is it influencing my thinking? What is the source of those emotions? And then how do I manage it? So I think because the decision and the action don't occur right away, it happens after processing of the data, including the management of that emotion. So a good example was with anger. Someone says something which angers you. If you react in the moment, bad decision perhaps. You don't help the situation. If you go back and reflect upon that, take that deep breath, calm down, but use the anger to motivate that social change or that comment, then I think you make a better decision. But part of that is stepping back and processing the data by giving yourself some time. So there's those 4 steps. I think if you just jump to one, you probably are going to derail yourself and probably make a mistake that you'll regret at some later point in time. You have to have all of those going at the Not at the same time, almost sequentially. Good
Thank you.
question, thank you.
Doctor, I have a question here. The question is like, you just mentioned that there are certain ways by which you can improve your emotional intelligence. So is the reverse also true? Like, it's a scary question. Like something I do, is it possible that I will lose it someday, or it comes down, the intelligence, the emotional intelligence reduces?
Can you diminish your emotional intelligence? Well, we think it goes up as you get older, so I guess if you could get younger, it would go down. That's one thing. I think it's like an unused muscle. Can you be, can your IQ go down? We don't know. We don't know. We think it will only get better with age. Doesn't mean you'll use it. So there's a difference between the underlying aptitude and the behaviors that you engage in. You also have to care. You also have to apply it. So I think what does happen is you may not care anymore. You may be burnt out. You may have too much empathy. So there has to be a balance. If you have a lot of empathy and you feel everyone's emotions and everyone's pain, but you lack a proportional amount of emotion management, you're going to burn out. And it might look like you are getting worse. You're actually not, but you're becoming incredibly stressed, and you're not coping with the emotions that you're opening yourself up to. So that can happen a lot, and that's one of the many causes of burnout.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doctor?
Whoever has the mic. Please.
Hello? Emotions are affected by moods, and those with mood disorders, how do they learn to trust their emotions to make better decisions?
They see a great clinical psychologist. That's a really good question. In a course, we differentiate between moods and emotions. So an emotion, I won't do it, but this was an emotion. There's an identifiable event that caused an emotion. And so if you plot it, a mood, in fact, if you literally plot it in time, an emotion spikes and then comes down quickly. Moods are more like this. And so I'm not a clinician, but what a clinical psychologist would do is help that person understand the feeling, anxiety, anger, sadness, and then analyze its source. And how reasonable is it? Where does it come from? Lack of sleep, too much caffeine, the look that person gave me. That's understanding emotions and understanding the exact causes of it and trying to separate. For the engineers in the group, I did this, there was an aerospace company called Lockheed Martin, employ a lot of engineers. And one of the engineers described it this way to me. I love it. He said, think of a signal to noise ratio. An emotion is a signal, and moods are the background noise. And one of the things you need to learn in that case is to separate the signal from the noise by asking those questions about sources, how reasonable is it to feel that way, and so forth. Very, very hard to do.
So we trust our emotion but not the mood.
Yes. Emotions have data, moods may not. I would ask a more serious, before I act on the feeling, I want to know its source. If it's because things are being thrown at me, then that's a data point. But you can't always trust the feeling. Trust the emotion, question the mood. It's a great way to say it.
My question was, is there really a one scale fits all from your experience, or does it differ from nationalities to nationalities, or from age to age, or does it really finally boil down to knowing the person you interact with the most, and that's where you're best, or your EQ is the maximum, whereas if you really don't know a person, or the nationality, or the age group, or in the case of India, the state he comes from, or the community, then you really could be very off-key in terms of getting your EQ right, or EQ score right?
Yeah, first of all, it does get a little better with age. We have a little bit of cross-cultural data, and we find that there's more similarities than there are differences. The best study that we have, which we just got published, we have data from Japan, India, Argentina, the US, and China. And there are more similarities than differences. So there's very few cultural differences, except, this is a big exception. When I just showed you the flash, there was fear. Everyone got that happy, surprised fear. That's universal. This is what's cultural. It's the display rule. So that some of you do work in Japan or with Japanese firms. And so you know that a cultural display rule in Japan might be very different than it is in America or in India. And culture can be India, but can also be this organization or a subculture, a department like the Culture Lab is part of a larger company. And you have your own display rules. And your homes have your own display rules. So culture has a huge impact, but what is culture? And I think it's a great question for you to ponder as we go out and get refreshments. So again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.